In the world of business, the mind is rarely allowed to rest. It moves from decision to decision, from meeting to meeting, from pressure to pressure. Even in quiet moments, many professionals are still thinking about targets, deadlines, responsibilities, opportunities, and risks. Over time, this constant mental activity can begin to drain more than energy. It can also reduce clarity, weaken focus, and slowly limit creativity. A person may continue working, but deep inside, the mind may already be tired. This is one of the most overlooked truths in modern business life. A busy mind is not always a productive mind. A full schedule is not always a clear strategy. And constant motion is not always real progress. Sometimes the greatest challenge is not working harder. Sometimes the greatest challenge is knowing when to pause, when to breathe, and when to step away long enough for the mind to recover. Rest is not laziness. Rest is part of wisdom. For many business leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals, mental exhaustion does not arrive all at once. It builds quietly. It appears in small signs. Decision-making becomes heavier. Patience becomes shorter. Creative thinking becomes slower. Problems that once felt manageable begin to feel larger than they really are. The mind starts repeating the same thoughts, the same worries, and the same solutions. That is often the moment when rest becomes essential, not optional. Nature offers something that business environments often cannot give. It offers space. It offers stillness. It offers a rhythm that is not driven by urgency. Trees do not rush. Water does not compete. The wind does not force outcomes. In a green and peaceful environment, the mind is gently invited to slow down. Breathing becomes easier. Attention becomes softer. Internal pressure begins to loosen. And in that quiet shift, the mind starts returning to balance. There is a reason why so many people feel clearer after time outdoors. Nature reduces noise. Not only the noise around us, but also the noise within us. When the mind is no longer surrounded by constant demands, it begins to settle. Thoughts become less crowded. Emotions become less tense. Awareness becomes more open. This does not mean every problem disappears. It means the mind regains the strength to see more clearly, to feel more calmly, and to think more wisely. Fresh ideas often appear in moments of mental spaciousness. They come when the mind is no longer fighting to keep up with pressure. They come when attention has room to notice something new. Many important breakthroughs do not begin in stress. They begin in reflection. They begin in silence. They begin while walking, observing, breathing, and allowing the mind to reset. A rested mind becomes more receptive. It hears possibilities that a tired mind can no longer hear. This matters deeply in business because business is not only about effort. It is also about perspective. The ability to lead well depends on judgment, emotional balance, and clear thinking. A tired mind may react quickly, but a rested mind responds wisely. A tired mind may focus only on pressure, but a rested mind can notice patterns, hidden opportunities, and long-term direction. When mental rest improves clarity, it also improves leadership. Creativity is not reserved for artists. In business, creativity is a practical strength. It helps shape strategy. It improves communication. It solves conflict. It reveals opportunity, turns obstacles into innovation. But creativity needs room. It rarely thrives under nonstop mental overload. That is why quiet environments matter. Green spaces, natural light, open air, rivers, forests, hills, and gardens all remind the mind that it does not need to force every answer. Sometimes the next answer arrives when pressure finally leaves. Many people have been trained to believe that nonstop work is the highest form of dedication. Yet nonstop work often creates hidden exhaustion. Hidden exhaustion reduces the quality of decisions. It reduces patience with people. It reduces emotional stability. It reduces the ability to imagine something new. Real productivity includes recovery. Sustainable success includes renewal. A strong business life is not built only on effort. It is built on effort, wisdom, rhythm, and restoration. Protecting the mind is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of maturity. Your mind is one of your greatest assets. It carries your vision, your creativity, your problem-solving ability, your communication, and your leadership. If it is overloaded for too long, the quality of all those things begins to decline. But when the mind is renewed, energy returns with more stability. Focus returns with more strength. Ideas return with more freedom. Nature is powerful because it reconnects us with what is simple. A walk through trees can slow the heartbeat of a stressful day. The sound of moving water can soften internal tension. A sunrise can restore perspective. A quiet landscape can remind us that not everything must be solved in one moment. In business, urgency is often loud. Nature is often quiet. And sometimes quiet is exactly what helps us recover the courage, confidence, and clarity we need. When you step away from pressure for a while, you are not abandoning your ambition. You are protecting it. You are giving it a healthier foundation. Burnout does not build great vision. Exhaustion does not build strong leadership. Mental restoration helps ambition survive. It helps vision stay alive. It helps success become more sustainable. The goal is not to escape responsibility. The goal is to return to responsibility with a stronger and more peaceful mind. A practical habit can begin with something very simple. Spend a little time in a green place without rushing. Leave your phone aside for a few moments. Walk more slowly than usual. Notice the movement of leaves, the sound of birds, the openness of the sky, or the rhythm of your breathing. Let your thoughts arrive without trying to control all of them. Allow your attention to widen. This is often where mental recovery begins. You may also find that some of your best ideas come when you stop chasing them. That is one of the beautiful surprises of rest. When the mind relaxes, it becomes more creative. When the inner world becomes calmer, new connections form. A challenge that once felt confusing may suddenly feel clear. A direction that seemed uncertain may begin to reveal itself. A solution that never appeared in the office may appear during a quiet moment outdoors. This is why reflection should not be treated as wasted time. Reflection turns experience into understanding. Reflection turns movement into direction. Reflection turns effort into wisdom. For a business person, reflection is part of strategic strength. It helps you understand not only what you are doing, but also why you are doing it and whether you are doing it in the best way. Time in nature creates a natural environment for that reflection to happen more deeply. Mental rest also supports emotional stability. When stress builds for too long, emotions can become reactive. Irritation grows more easily. Discouragement becomes heavier. Doubt becomes louder. In a calmer state, however, emotions become easier to manage. The mind listens better. The heart settles. The body softens. And when emotional steadiness returns, leadership improves. It becomes easier to speak well, decide well, and relate well to others. The most successful seasons of life are not always the busiest seasons. Sometimes the most successful season begins after intentional rest. It begins after clarity returns. It begins after the mind has been given room to breathe. A rested business person does not simply feel better. A rested business person often thinks better, leads better, and creates better. That is why recovery should be seen as part of performance, not separate from it. You do not need a perfect plan to begin. Even short moments of restoration can help. A quiet morning walk, a short visit to a park, a few minutes of silence before a major decision, a weekend in a natural environment, a slower evening without constant digital interruption. These habits may seem small, but their effect can be deep. What matters is consistency. The mind responds well when it is regularly given space to reset. As you care for your mind, you may notice a new kind of strength growing. Not rushed strength, but steady strength. Not noisy confidence, but clear confidence. Not forced creativity, but natural creativity. The mind begins to work with more elegance. Vision becomes easier to hold. Decisions become easier to carry. Your work becomes more connected to purpose instead of only pressure. That is one of the hidden rewards of rest. So if you have been carrying too much for too long, let this be a reminder. Pause without guilt. Breathe without hurry. Step outside when you can. Sit near something green. Listen to the quiet. Allow nature to calm your inner world. Let your mind recover from the pressure it has been carrying. New ideas often grow where the mind feels safe, clear, and alive again. Thank you for watching, and if this message encouraged you, please subscribe for more inspiring content. In business, many people learn how to manage time, money, systems, and teams, but they do not always learn how to manage the condition of their own inner world. Yet the inner world matters. It shapes how we interpret problems, how we respond to pressure, and how we treat people around us. When the mind is overworked, even good opportunities can feel like burdens. Even important relationships can feel draining. But when the mind is rested, the same life can be approached with more patience, more grace, and more clarity. A healthy business life is not built only by what happens on a calendar. It is also built by what happens in the spaces between activity. Those spaces allow the mind to process experience. They allow emotions to settle. They allow ideas to connect in ways that are difficult when a person is constantly stimulated. That is why stillness can be so powerful. It gives the mind permission to stop defending itself against noise and to start listening again. Nature is one of the best places for this kind of listening. In natural environments, there is beauty without pressure. There is movement without anxiety. There is order without control. A forest path, a quiet river, a mountain view, a soft sunrise, or the sound of wind through trees can quietly remind us that life has a deeper rhythm than urgency. The nervous system responds to that rhythm. The breath deepens. The body softens. The mind begins to release what it has been carrying. This release is not only emotional, it is also intellectual. Many business people discover that, after time in nature, they think with more openness. Their minds stop circling the same problem and begin seeing fresh angles. This happens because mental rest restores flexibility. Instead of forcing one narrow path, the mind becomes able to explore alternatives. That flexibility is one of the foundations of innovation. New ideas often come from a mind that is spacious enough to explore, instead of tired enough to repeat. There is also an important lesson here about control. In business, we often feel responsible for keeping everything moving. We monitor, plan, correct, and anticipate. These are useful skills, but they can become overwhelming when they never pause. Nature teaches another lesson. It shows that growth can happen with patience. A tree does not rush to become taller. A river does not panic about reaching its destination. A season unfolds in its own time. When we observe that, something inside us remembers that not every meaningful result comes from force. This does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming wise about energy. It means learning when to push and when to pause. It means recognizing that recovery is part of effective performance. Many people ignore recovery until stress begins to damage their work, their mood, or their relationships. But a wiser path is to build recovery into life before exhaustion takes control. That is what strong leadership looks like. It is not only the ability to endure pressure, it is also the ability to protect clarity. A protected mind is a more useful mind. It can listen carefully in a meeting, can stay calm in conflict. It can think strategically instead of reactively, can notice what others miss, and perhaps most importantly, it can remain connected to purpose. Purpose becomes difficult to feel when the mind is overwhelmed. Under constant stress, people often start operating only from obligation. They lose the deeper sense of why the work matters. Rest helps bring that sense back. When purpose returns, work feels different. The same responsibilities may remain, but they are carried with a stronger center. The mind is less scattered. The emotions are less agitated. Attention becomes more intentional. In that state, business can once again become an expression of vision rather than only a response to pressure. This is one of the reasons rest is not an interruption of meaningful work. It is often what reconnects us to meaningful work. There is something else nature offers that is especially valuable for professionals. It offers perspective. When you look across a wide landscape, walk beneath tall trees, or sit beside moving water, Your problems are not necessarily erased, but they are often placed in a healthier proportion. The mind stops exaggerating every pressure. It starts seeing more honestly. Some concerns remain important, but others lose the false urgency they had gained. Perspective is powerful because it protects us from making stressed decisions in a stressed state. A calm mind is usually a better decision maker than a crowded mind. That does not mean every calm person is right, but it does mean clarity improves discernment. When the mind is rested, it can weigh options more fairly, can hear nuance, can tolerate complexity without collapsing into panic. It can separate what is urgent from what is important. These are not small advantages. In business, they can shape entire outcomes. Mental rest also changes the way we relate to creativity. Many people assume creativity is something that appears only when they feel inspired. But creativity is often more closely connected to mental condition than to sudden inspiration. When the mind is exhausted, it tends to narrow, conserves energy. It becomes less playful, less curious, and less adventurous. But when the mind is refreshed, curiosity returns. Curiosity asks better questions. Better questions open better possibilities. And better possibilities lead to stronger ideas. If you are responsible for leading others, your own relationship with rest also influences your team. People learn from the culture around them. If a leader only glorifies overwork, others may believe they must ignore their own well-being to be valued. But if a leader models steadiness, thoughtful pacing, and healthy renewal, a stronger culture can grow. That kind of culture does not reduce excellence. It supports excellence. It encourages people to do their best work from a healthier state of mind. A leader who rests well often becomes more present. Presence is one of the most underrated strengths in leadership. People can feel when someone is listening with full attention. They can feel when someone is calm enough to understand rather than simply react. Presence builds trust. Trust strengthens teams. Teams that trust each other think better, communicate better, and recover from difficulty more effectively. Once again, the condition of one mind influences much more than one person. This is why moments of quiet are never only personal. They are strategic. They influence the quality of your decisions, the quality of your communication, and the quality of your leadership. Even your creativity becomes more useful when it emerges from peace instead of panic. A peaceful mind tends to create with more depth. It is less desperate to prove itself, can take time to see what truly matters. One practical step is to create regular intervals of mental distance from business pressure. Not total irresponsibility, but intentional distance. There can be a daily practice of quiet in the morning. There can be a short walk outside in the middle of a demanding day. There can be an evening habit of disconnecting from unnecessary digital noise. There can be a weekly rhythm of spending time in a natural setting. These practices are simple, but they help prevent the mind from living in a state of constant compression. Another useful step is learning to notice early signs of mental overload. The signs are often subtle at first. Impatience increases. Sleep becomes lighter. Simple tasks feel strangely heavy. Creativity drops. Motivation becomes inconsistent. A person may still appear functional on the outside while carrying growing fatigue on the inside. The earlier these signs are noticed, the easier it becomes to respond wisely. Waiting until burnout arrives is far more costly. Responding wisely may mean simplifying for a while. It may mean taking a walk before making a big decision. It may mean delaying a non-essential task in order to recover clarity. It may mean choosing a slower environment for a few hours so that the mind can regulate itself again. Sometimes people think these actions are small, but small actions can interrupt large cycles of stress. A few quiet moments can change the tone of an entire day. If you pay attention, you may notice that nature does not merely calm the mind. It also restores sensitivity. It helps you notice details again. Light on leaves, sound in water, texture in wind, space in silence. This kind of noticing matters because attention is part of intelligence. When attention is dulled by stress, a person may overlook both beauty and opportunity. When attention awakens again, life becomes more vivid, and ideas often become more available. For a business person, this renewed sensitivity can lead to practical benefits. You may hear a better way to communicate with a client. You may recognize a simpler approach to a problem. You may discover a clearer priority. You may realize that some things need to be released and others need to be strengthened. All of these are forms of insight, and insight grows best where the mind is not suffocating under endless strain. So give yourself permission to build a different rhythm. Let effort and restoration belong together. Let ambition and peace exist in the same life. Let business success grow from a healthier foundation. When you rest your mind, you are not falling behind. You are making space for clarity, wisdom, creativity, and sustainable strength. That is not a loss. That is a deeper kind of gain. There is a quiet strength that grows in people who learn how to rest well. It is not the loud strength of constant motion, and it is not the brittle strength of forcing results at all costs. It is a deeper strength. It is the strength of steadiness, the strength of clarity, and the strength of knowing how to return to yourself when pressure tries to scatter your attention. For business people, that strength can become one of the most valuable forms of resilience. Resilience is often misunderstood. Many imagine it means pushing through everything without slowing down. But true resilience includes recovery. It includes the ability to release tension before tension begins to define your life. It includes knowing how to reset your mind before fatigue becomes your normal state. A resilient person is not someone who never feels strain. A resilient person is someone who knows how to restore balance after strain. Nature helps with this restoration because it invites the whole person to soften. The eyes soften when they look at green spaces instead of screens. The ears soften when they hear birds, wind, and water instead of endless alerts and demands. The breath softens when the body senses safety. The mind softens when it no longer feels chased. All of these small changes matter. Together, they create an environment in which the nervous system can settle and the mind can recover its natural intelligence. That natural intelligence is often hidden beneath noise. When a person is overloaded, they may still function, but they are often functioning with less grace and less depth. Their mind becomes mechanical. It solves what is immediately in front of it, but it loses contact with wider vision. That is why rest is so important. Rest does not merely reduce tiredness. It restores access to the deeper layers of perception that make excellent leadership possible. In those deeper layers, wisdom begins to speak more clearly. Wisdom does not usually shout. It rarely competes with noise. It is often quiet, patient, and easily ignored by an exhausted mind. But when the mind becomes calm, wisdom becomes easier to hear. A business decision that felt confused may become simpler. A conflict that felt personal may be seen more objectively. A future direction that once seemed hidden may begin to take shape. This is one of the gifts of rest. It allows truth to become more visible. Many professionals spend years chasing performance without recognizing how much performance depends on mental condition. They work on strategies, branding, expansion, systems, and growth, and all of these things matter. But the mind that handles those things matters too. If that mind is restless, pressured, or depleted, even strong strategies may be executed poorly. But if that mind is clear, grounded, and renewed, ordinary strategies can often be carried out with remarkable excellence. This means mental rest should be treated as part of preparation. Athletes understand the value of recovery because the body cannot perform well without it. In the same way, the mind cannot perform at its best without renewal. It needs silence. It needs reflection. It needs time away from stimulation. It needs experiences that calm rather than compress. Nature offers those experiences generously. It asks for nothing but attention, and in return it often gives perspective, peace, and new insight. One reason fresh ideas return in nature is because nature restores wonder. Wonder is not childish. Wonder is a creative state. It opens the mind instead of closing it. It invites curiosity instead of control. When adults lose wonder, life often becomes dry, mechanical, and exhausting. But when wonder returns, imagination also returns. A beautiful sky, a quiet trail, a moving river, or the changing light of evening can wake something in the heart that spreadsheets and deadlines cannot reach. That awakening often carries creative energy with it. A person does not need to live far from cities or work to benefit from this. Even small encounters with natural beauty can help. A few quiet minutes in a garden, sitting beneath a tree, watching the sunrise before the day begins, looking out across open land, walking without headphones for a little while, breathing deeply near water. These moments may seem simple, but simplicity is part of their power. They help the mind return to what is essential. What is essential is often forgotten under pressure. We forget that health matters. We forget that peace matters. We forget that the quality of our attention shapes the quality of our lives. We forget that strength without inner calm can become harshness. We forget that productivity without restoration becomes unsustainable. Nature reminds us of these things without speaking, teaches through presence, teaches through rhythm. It teaches through the experience of being in a place where urgency is not in charge. When urgency is not in charge, the mind begins to reorganize itself. Thoughts settle into better order. Priorities become easier to identify. Emotional storms lose some of their force. There is a kind of internal housekeeping that happens when we stop overstimulating ourselves. The mind processes what it has been carrying. It lets some things go. It places other things in a clearer position. This is why a person can leave a walk in nature feeling as though something invisible has been cleaned inside them. That inner clearing has real business value. It affects the tone of your next conversation. It affects your capacity to handle setbacks. It affects how well you notice detail. It affects your willingness to think long-term instead of react only to what is immediate. Long-term thinking is especially important for any person building something meaningful. Vision requires space. It requires the ability to look beyond the pressure of today. A rested mind is far more capable of doing that. Rest also helps protect integrity. Under intense stress, people are more likely to make decisions they later regret. They may become unnecessarily sharp with others. They may agree to things without thinking carefully. They may act from fear instead of wisdom. But when the mind is calm, values are easier to remember. Character becomes easier to maintain. You become less driven by reaction and more guided by conviction. That matters in every area of life, and it matters deeply in leadership. There is great dignity in learning how to slow down without losing direction. In fact, slowing down at the right time often protects direction. It allows us to move with intention instead of confusion. It helps us notice whether we are pursuing something meaningful or merely running because the world around us is running. Nature is helpful here because it interrupts social pressure. It reminds us that value is not measured only by speed, and that meaningful growth often unfolds with patience. If you build a life where rest is respected, your relationship with work may begin to change. You may still work hard, but not from inner panic. You may still carry responsibility, but not with constant heaviness. You may still aim for success, but from a healthier center. Work becomes more sustainable when it flows from clarity. And clarity grows more easily in a mind that is allowed to breathe. This is why it is wise to create intentional boundaries. Not every message needs an immediate answer. Not every problem deserves access to your mind at every hour. Not every day should end the same way it began, with noise. Boundaries are not rejection. They are protection. They protect focus, peace, and perspective. And when those things are protected, the mind has a greater chance to remain creative and strong over time. Some people hesitate to rest because they are afraid of falling behind. But constantly operating from fatigue can cause a different kind of delay. It delays wisdom. It delays creativity. It delays healing. It delays the kind of insight that could help you move forward with more confidence. Sometimes slowing down for a while is the fastest way to recover the quality you need for the road ahead. So let yourself practice a better rhythm. Work with commitment, but also rest with intention. Pursue excellence, but do not neglect renewal. Spend time in places that help your inner life breathe again. Return to green spaces. Return to quiet moments. Return to the simple beauty of nature. In doing so, you may discover that your best ideas do not come from forcing the mind harder, but from allowing it to heal, to settle, and to become alive again. And when the mind becomes alive again, something remarkable happens. Vision becomes brighter, creativity becomes freer, leadership becomes steadier, peace becomes stronger. The future no longer feels like a wall of pressure. It begins to feel like a path, one step at a time, one clear thought at a time, one renewed breath at a time. This is the power of resting the mind. This is the power of nature. And this is one of the quiet foundations of lasting success.